Probably one of the most interesting topics of our time, and of Bill's mind, in my mind, is right now is because I am finding it interesting. The topic of maturity stop again, because in my mind I was relating it to school and educational systems that have been made for us, and we put our children into. Well, some people do, and what that means to the maturity stop. I've talked about maturity stop a bit, but a quick overview is in childhood we all have emotional shock type situations, and we make decisions. Now the human system is quite simple, and it's based on two emotional shocks basically from childhood, and if they're not resolved, which can be quite a process, you're always coming from them, and that's your maturity stop. So the best way to really find this out is by observing people really closely, and some are more obvious than others, but you observe them, and you can see round about what age they're coming from. I don't mean in a patronizing way. This is a serious subject, and people are very deluded in their maturity stops, which is a serious subject to do with mental health. And it's probably the most important, but it's one of the most hardest to approach with people, because for a start you've got to have a good grip on your own maturity stop, otherwise you're coming from a place of childhood trauma, and trauma's a big word, I understand that, but it's a trauma situation. So what it does is it molds you, and there's all kinds of factors that will mold you and can mold you in that. And a lot of the people that say, I have nothing wrong with me, I'm completely normal, blah blah blah, they're coming from the worst type of trauma, because it's more deluded. Because you're saying I haven't got anything wrong with me, and that's not true. It can't be true, because where are you coming from? Well, tell me where you're coming from then, and what's going on. I don't know what you're talking about. What you're talking about? Do you see what I mean? This is what it is. If you don't know where you're coming from, then it's a type of delusion. You've got to at least know where some of your specific shock is. And there's numerous examples. But anyway, I was thinking about that in terms of school, which is really, really important. So the way that people, I would say largely subconsciously, but it does emanate through into the front of people's minds about, it goes into the front of people's minds, and so they, sorry, I forgot what I was talking about, try not to die. So the maturity stop. So basically they've got this maturity stop thing going on, and they're sending their kids to school. This is what I'm talking about, and there's a subconscious reason why they send their kids to school, and that's because it's easier. It's a lot easier to push the responsibility of your children onto someone else or something else. And this is what people do, and some people are really obvious with it. They'll complain at the school, "Oh, my child, you're not educating my children properly, or child properly. You're doing this, you're doing that." Now, it's not their responsibility; it's yours. It's your responsibility to educate your child. You've just given the responsibility to someone else, a school. What I'm getting at here is schools were largely in the beginning created to gain power over people, and they worked really well, really fast, because families weren't educating and passing stuff down. They were just pushing the education of their children onto, in a kind of child like home ball stall type situation onto other people. They're pushing it onto other people, and that's that. But so the control thing comes in, and the control thing is the parents are controlled basically. In that they're kept in their maturity stop, because to come out of your maturity stop, you have to, if you've got kids, you start to come out when you face yourself, because you're facing your children, because you're facing their behaviour in you. Otherwise, you're a hypocrite. And if you've got that knowledge, if you don't just if you're not narcissistic about it, and you don't just do narcissistic abuse, you come to the conclusion that, oh, I'm like that, and hopefully you come to the conclusion that I need to stop being like that, and so you're educating yourself in, and this is how you put a stop to it, so that people can be under your control as children, because you've got to have, if you want to control a nation or whatever, the best way to control them is if they're not grown up properly, and I mean in their subconscious. Obviously people can be seemingly grown up, but and then you can control them because they're like children and you're like the adult, big daddy, big mummy, like I did that video on Big Daddy and Big Mummy. So this is how it works. So you're negating your responsibility to your children, to educate them, and this is doing you harm. Although it becomes easier. Well, it's easier in the daytime when they're not there, and you can, if you've got to hang out with your children all day long, and you're educating them, it is not easy. It's you're faced with yourself all day. It's stressful. All kinds of stuff happens, it's a big deal, and people can't wait to get rid of their kids and send them to thing. And doesn't that, to something, and doesn't that show you that you're unwilling to face yourself? And that's what it's about. That's what it boils down to. You're not willing to face yourself, because facing yourself is hard. It's painful. It can be a nightmare. But you are going to have to face something at some point, and putting it off doesn't make sense. So in the long run, sending your kids to school doesn't help with that situation. The other thing is they pick up all kinds of stuff from all kinds of places, and it become alien from the family, and it creates all kinds of other situations that make it more complicated to educate your children by yourself. So you end up having a kind of like a semi kind of fake relationship thing, and then all kinds of other stuff comes in, and it can be really complex. Lots of unsaid stuff basically. But really, every case is different. So I'm not generalising here. Some people that go to school, send kids to school, it's totally fine. But don't kid yourself if you think it's not. And sort it out. At the end of the day, it's a control system. That's what I'm getting at. And it's not natural and it's not normal. But it's not natural at all to have this system. But it is an amazing way if you want to control people, and this is why it's there. So that's it really. It keeps you in your maturity stop, and enables you to be manipulated, because you're always going to look up to Big Mummy and Big Daddy, the school system, the government, kings and queens. You're always going to look up to them, and they're going to abuse you, massive. And you're not going to realise, because you don't always realise you're being abused. This is the whole thing. If you talk to someone that's being abused, sometimes you can tell them you're being abused. Like, this is abuse, and they go, is it? And they thought it was normal because they've got their childhood coping mechanism of coping with abuse. So they think it's totally normal. This is what's going on. With the, and people are saying a lot about mass formation, as in lots of people are doing the same thing. They have for years and years and years. It's people like me that have stepped outside the box and are really looking at it, that get judged as different. But that's, by the by. Who cares? I mean, I'm just being rational and looking at things. and trying to work things out. Evidence-based, always, like scientific, including bringing up my children. That's the same thing. Me and my wife have done it in a very kind of seeing what's happened way, and put your hands up if you've done something wrong, and but we've always stayed one step ahead of our kids so that we can be there for them if need be, and we make them self-sufficient and inside themselves as much as we can, and we make mistakes like everyone else, and it's there to be worked out. So anyway, that's just an example, but I mean, we're just an example but of something, but at the end of the day, it's a form of control, and they're controlling you through your inner world, and this is definitely happening. And in more recent times, because of all the weird stuff that's been going on, people are snapping out of that, which means they're snapping out of their childhood program and waking up as an adult, and this is wonderful, and the more they push, the more people will wake up. So this is why they put their fail-safe in, which they're trying to run out at the moment. And the other thing is, when I say they, right, I get grief for this, saying they, and people just go, oh, they, you're just talking about they, them, who are they, who are they, who are them, what are you going on about? And at the end of the conversation, they're justified in what they're thinking because I'm saying the word they. But a good way to think about it when I say they, or anyone says they, because lots of people say it because there is a general oppression going on, a good way to think about it is, like kings and queens, so or royal family or whatever. Just look at what's happened. They're doing the same thing they've always been doing, of control and stuff. It's just gone with the times. It's out there to see who they are. So they are part of it. They're part of it, and there's other people that are part of it. And what it is it's a when you say they, it is a generalisation in a way. There's not that many people that are ultimately controlling things, but down the line there's a lot of people. So all they is a common narrative. They've got a common narrative, but it's a step over everyone else, and this is what they is, and that's why it's difficult to fight a war against someone that is someone else's subconscious program, like it's difficult for them to fight this war against good loving people that understand what's going on. It's really hard for them, and they keep thinking they might make it, but they never will, because they can't, because the natural default of humans is to be nice and loving and think about things and be rational, and if you don't have them under oppression, that's what they're like, because that's what it always comes down to, which is an interesting thought, and it brings hope for some of the weird shit that's going on at the moment, especially. They know that they know they're not really in control. This program that's running inside these people, they know they're not really in control, but they're grasping onto it and trying to get what they can as they go along. This is what it's about. This is what it's always been about. But ultimately, we know who we are. Well, I know who I am, and I know who the people around me are. And you know who you are, and you can know more if you look inside yourself and find out what's going on. And as we're talking about maturity stop, sort your maturity stop out, because it is the most important thing. It's the first step, the first shock. So this is how you do it. You basically you just think on it, and you ask. You don't have to ask the people that inflicted it on you. You can ask siblings or people around you, and then think about it and have dreams and just get there. And in the end, you'll find it. You'll find that initial shock where you changed, and that is the point you start from. And then the second shock can be sometimes a bit later in your teenage years, or maybe not. It can be in your young years, and then you see these people that got young maturity stops, and you know they're in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and they've still got loads of teddy bears around them, and all, you know, that's the more obvious one. But there's and they talk with a baby voice, a lot of people like that, because their maturity stops under the age of like 9 or whatever, or whatever age it is, and they're still talking quite young, you know. You know, so yeah, find it out, and then sit with it. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to specifically talk to anyone about it in depth, but it's the first stage, because once that's shifted, you know, you can move on to something else, and then because there'll be something on top of it, and it's like layered, like a layer cake. It's always a layer cake. It always comes off in specific layers, and no one can tell you what those layers will be. Obviously, in shamanism, they can see it, and you can see it, and you can see when the next layer and predict it and be ready, and that's the idea. You know, you're observing and guiding their way out, and you know, especially in the West, different in a tribe that's where all this shit's all taken care of, but we're a way away from that, you know, and let's admit that. We're a long effing distance away from a tribe, and let's not pretend we are. We're a fucked up tribe that's got possibility always. So yeah, that's it. Okay, I'm gonna get home.